Let's go to Youngstown, Ohio. Jim in Youngstown. It's good to have you, Jim.
Hey,
how are you?
How you doing, brother?
Good. How about you, Jim?
I'm doing good. I'm doing real good. But let's get the right perspective here because honestly, I've been waiting for the Cleveland Browns to win a game. Thank God. But let's get the perspective straight here. However short the game was, you're losing. Shame on the Pittsburgh Steelers for having their quarterback go back to pass in the first place. They should have handed the ball off. The game would have been over. But let's put the blame on who should be blamed and who right now is not getting a suspension. Let's say the quarterback was getting sacked. If he would have just took the sack and remained like a professional football player, which he was supposed to be, and he gets sacked, and then he gets mad and he tries to scuffle with one of the strongest players on the Cleveland Browns' team, and he starts to put his foot in Garrett's crotch and then tries to rip his helmet off. Don't you think that would piss me off? I think definitely would. And everybody's getting suspended. Everybody's going to get fined except the guy that started it. So let's put the blame on who started it. So shame number one on the Pittsburgh Steelers for having their quarterback go back to pass in the first place.
All right, Jim, let me jump in. You're starting to repeat yourself. I appreciate that. All right, so, Jim, what you said to me is, that's Jim in Youngstown, what you said to me is, let's get the perspective right. Quote, let's get the perspective right. Why don't we do that, Jim? Let's get the perspective right, because that's not the right perspective. I'm not saying that I'm right and you're wrong. I'm saying that I'm right and you're wrong. Did you just say that Mason Rudolph started this because he went back to pass in a game that was already over? That he should have just handed the ball off? Like, none of this would have happened if Mason Rudolph knew that they already lost the game and just turned and handed the ball off? Is that what you're saying to me? You know, I've heard the other argument that, yeah, but Rudolph was grabbing at Garrett's helmet. Rudolph tried to kick him in the junk. What I hadn't heard was Rudolph started the whole thing because he tried to throw the ball in a game that was already over. It's not a reason to go, my man. And most of all, it's not a reason to try to kill a guy. I'm not saying that he tried to kill the guy. I'm saying he could have. So no, that doesn't fly with me. Dear Rome, these are the worst mornings. Everyone is still running hot. Nobody has time to fully consider the wider implications. But here we are. So after all the dust settles from the suspensions and the hot takers have wound down, we still have one glaring issue that top brass of a certain league refuse to acknowledge. It's a problem that some have been talking about for years with no action. If there are going to be weapons in the NFL, why has the UFC not considered the same thing? I thought this was a man's sport. SMH Rome. Sincerely. Trying to rip a man's head off. Kicking a man in the head with cleats. Trying to buy Bitcoin with a credit card. Wearing a Myles Garrett jersey to your performance review. Machine gun truck decals. And prescription mouthwash. Wore Myles Garrett being the Grand Marshal at UFC 245. Wore Dana White suing the NFL after the Shield puts equalizers on the agenda for the spring owners meetings. Even Joaquin jumped in. Hey, Rome, I agree with that kook. I would like people to start blaming the knife and not me for Ron and Nicole's murders. Signed, Oj. Eric near the Canadian Falls. This guy was more to the point. Hey, Jim in Youngstown. Shut the bleep up, you Ohio hick. Piece of trash. You have no effing idea what you're saying, you inbred ass clown. Bleep you and bleep those clowns. Browns. Mike in Tampa, formerly from Pittsburgh. They hate each other's guts. They really do. And if the teams don't, the fans do. War, Jungle, Carmel. More than one professional athlete has told me how much they love that phone call. The Jungle Carmel phone call. I'm not going to say who they are, but more than one have. Hey, Jim, that caller's right. It's almost as if the helmet hit me. Signed, Myles Garrett.
Ron and Nicole were physically dead, and it's almost like they killed me.